On a sunny June morning, Dan Tillery, a dedicated musician from Waterford Township, Michigan, found himself at a turning point in his life. After years of effort and sleepless nights devoted to music, he and his girlfriend, Megan, had finally purchased their first home, a place where dreams could come true, and the absence of a four-legged companion was notably felt. The search for a new family member led Dan to the Detroit Dog Rescue, a place where fate was about to weave its magic. It was there that he first laid eyes on Sir Wiggleton, a 2-year-old American bulldog with a history of abandonment and survival on the cold streets of Detroit. The dog, with his silly smile and tongue hanging out, looked directly into Dan's eyes, and at that moment, an unbreakable connection was formed. Dan, unable to resist Sir Wiggleton's unique charm, decided to adopt him and rename him Diggy. This gesture of love was sealed with a selfie, a portrait of pure happiness that Dan didn't hesitate to share with the world, unaware that this simple act of joy would trigger a series of events that would test the strength of his newly formed family. As Dan prepared his home to welcome Diggy, he reflected on the meaning of finally having a complete home. "This is a fresh start for us," he told Megan, unaware that the storm approaching could threaten the future they envisioned for their family. Dan and Megan's joy in welcoming Diggy into their new home was palpable. The house, once just a space, began to transform into a home with the arrival of their new member. Diggy quickly adapted to his new environment, filling every corner with his contagious energy and joy. In a gesture of gratitude and happiness, Dan shared a selfie with Diggy on social media, hoping only to share some of his joy with friends and followers. The image showed the two of them with wide smiles, symbolizing the beginning of a new chapter. But what was supposed to be a beautiful and emotional adoption story ended up turning into a nightmare and a true police case, turning Dan's life upside down, making him wonder if he had really made the right decision to adopt Diggy, or if it would be better to return him to the adoption center immediately. After posting the photo of his new friend on his social network, the photo went viral, reaching hearts and screens around the world, but it also attracted unwanted attention. Without Dan's knowledge, the joy captured in that photo would trigger a chain of events that would test not only his resilience, but also that of the entire community. A few days after the post, a knock on the door changed everything. It was the Waterford police officers informing Dan of an unexpected violation. Diggy, despite being an American bulldog, was seen as a pit bull in the eyes of local law, and the possession of such dogs was prohibited in the city. Dan was stunned. How can this be, he wondered, looking at Diggy, who innocently played in the background, unaware of the chaos unfolding. The police officer's insistence on classifying Diggy as a pit bull, despite the documentation presented by Dan, highlighted a grim reality. The fight would not only be for Diggy, but against a stigma and legislation that punished dogs and owners based on appearances. Dan tried to argue, presenting the adoption papers that clearly identified Diggy as an American bulldog. However, the police lieutenant's words were final. "He looks like a pit bull to me. I would issue a fine." The options presented to Dan were limited and devastating. Diggy had to be returned to the shelter, or they would face severe legal consequences. The news of the potential separation spread rapidly, generating a wave of support for Dan and Diggy. The online community, touched by the duo's story and outraged by the injustice, began to mobilize. A petition was launched, calling for the revocation of the decision and the review of the law that discriminated against dogs based on their breed. As Dan prepared for what seemed to be the battle of his life, he was not alone. The community, both local and online, rallied in support, ready to fight for Diggy's right to remain in his new home. What started as a simple photo of a man and his smiling dog had become a symbol of fighting against prejudice and for justice. As the dust from the unexpected police visit settled, Dan found himself at a crossroads that would define his family's future. The order to remove Diggy from his home on the grounds that he was a banned breed not only challenged Dan's sense of justice, but also the unconditional love he felt for his companion. Determined to fight, Dan knew the battle wouldn't be easy, but the support flowing from all corners of the world gave him hope. Moving quickly, the online community turned indignation into action. An online petition, started by animal rights advocates and supporters of Dan and Diggy, quickly amassed over 100,000 signatures. Each signature was a cry against injustice and a step toward change. Additionally, animal rights advocacy groups offered to represent Dan, bringing legal expertise and strategic support to face the looming challenge. Meanwhile, Dan prepared for the formal hearing, armed with documents, testimonies from veterinarians, and a global community by his side. His defense was clear. Diggy was not a pit bull, but an American bulldog, and the law threatening to separate them was based on a misidentification and outdated prejudices. The hearing was marked by moments of tension and emotion. Dan, standing before the court, not only defended Diggy, but also the idea that no animal should be judged solely by its appearance. The public outcry and media pressure, fueled by Diggy's viral story, brought unprecedented attention to the case, highlighting flaws in laws that discriminate against specific dog breeds. During the process, Diggy's loving personality and exemplary behavior were highlighted as evidence that breed-based laws not only failed to protect the public, but also punished innocent dogs and their responsible owners. Veterinarians and animal behavior experts testified in Diggy's defense, reinforcing the argument that legislation should focus on individual dog behavior, not breed. The court's decision was eagerly awaited, not only by Dan and Diggy, but by all who had been touched by their story. Finally, on a day that would go down in the city's history, the judge announced his decision. The charges against Diggy would be dropped, and he could remain with Dan. More than that, the victory sparked a debate about the need to reform laws related to dog ownership, leading to significant changes in how dog breeds were determined in the city. The celebration was immense. Dan, Megan, and Diggy, reunited under the same roof, became symbols of perseverance, love, and the ability to change when communities come together for a just cause. Their battle story resonated far beyond Waterford Township, inspiring other cities to reconsider their own laws regarding dog breeds. Diggy's victory was not just a win for one family, but a triumph for the global community of animal lovers. It demonstrated the power of collective voice against injustices and reaffirmed the belief that love and compassion can indeed change the world. After the legal and emotional storm, Dan and Diggy's lives began to find a new rhythm, a rhythm marked not only by the peace of being together, but also by the weight and significance of the victory they had achieved. The legal battle, though challenging, shed light on a much larger issue that transcended Waterford Township itself: unfair judgment and discrimination against certain dog breeds. Dan and Diggy's victory deeply resonated within the community, serving as a catalyst for change. The review of local legislation, which now required veterinary assessment to determine a dog's breed rather than decisions based on superficial appearance, was a significant step toward a fairer and more compassionate society for all its members, regardless of species. Transformed by the experience, Dan became a vocal advocate for animal rights, using his and Diggy's story to educate and inspire others. He organized awareness events, collaborated with animal shelters, and participated in campaigns to promote responsible adoption and fight breed stereotypes. Megan and he also began working on a project to create a support network for dog owners facing similar legal challenges, ensuring that no other family would go through the same heartbreak they experienced. Diggy's story became a symbol of hope and a testament to the impact determined individuals can have on public policy reform. Dan and Diggy's story, rich in emotion, challenges, and triumph, transcended the personal to touch the lives of many, serving as a powerful reminder of the deep connection that can exist between humans and animals. This connection, based on love, understanding, and mutual respect, has the power to inspire significant changes, both in the heart and in the structures of society. Dan's fight to save Diggy not only changed laws in Waterford Township, but also inspired communities around the world to reconsider and question their own policies on pets and breed discrimination. The legacy of this story is a world where more dogs like Diggy have the chance to find loving homes, free from judgment based on appearance. Dan and Diggy's narrative also serves as a reminder that even in the most challenging circumstances, hope and perseverance can prevail. Through their journey, they taught that empathy and love across species can break down barriers, change minds, and ultimately, laws. In the end, Dan and Diggy's story is not just about fighting unjust legislation. It's a story about discovering family in unexpected places, the strength of community, and the transformative power of love. They remind us that, in an often divided world, the ability to love and fight for each other, regardless of differences, is perhaps the most human quality of all. Thus, as Dan and Diggy continue to live their lives, their story remains a beacon of hope, a celebration of the indomitable spirit of love, and a call to action for all those who believe in a fairer and more compassionate world for all its inhabitants.